because it's very topical. Later on, we'll be divesting into other conversations, including how do we avoid conflict of interest and all the major issues in the Republic of Ghana today. But let me welcome Dr. Dominic Ayinde. You're welcome, Doc.
Thank you very much, Raymond.
I hope you are doing well.
Well, I'm keeping body and soul together.
Oh, wonderful.
In these times.
In your district, in your constituency, is illegal mining happening?
Well, not directly, but in the neighboring constituency, that is Nabdam, and then Talisi. Those are two constituencies that border mine. There's a lot of, heavy mining activity going on there.
Even now?
Even now, yes.
Was it ever stopped?
Scale. Well, at some point in time, yes, small-scale mining, there was a kind of moratorium that was placed on small-scale mining.
Yes.
Yeah, and that took effect. But of course, the illegal ones were still, in their pits looking for gold, and they were being arrested left, right, and center by the police. In fact, some of my constituents who migrated to those areas had troubles with the police during that moratorium period, and I used to be called upon to try to help them out.
So you bailed illegal miners? Well,
not exactly. Those who were arrested and taken to police into police custody, I intervened in the right way, all right, for investigations to take place. To determine whether or not they were actually engaged in small-scale mining in those areas. Some of them, rightly or wrongly, claimed that they were actually just protecting their pits, pending the lifting of the moratorium. And no one of them was taken to court for prosecution. So, I believed in good faith that the police, had determined that they were not actually engaged in small-scale mining.
Now, on the face of
illegal small-scale mining.
Because, of course, I was told just last week that we had actually given out 100 licenses for small-scale mining, so some of which is actually legal coming
that is
from the various ends across the country. So we can't bundle them together anyway. Now, on the face of it, it appears to many we have lost the fight against illegal mining.
Yes, we have. And I think that what is happening is deplorable. We can say that there is a regulatory failure, on the part of the regulatory institutions. Now, mind you, we have a Minerals Commission that is supposed to regulate the sector, and it is supposed to have offices in the mining districts. Now, it's not all the 275 administrative districts that have mining activities going on. So they are not supposed to have, just administrative offices, but offices in the mining district. So if a district, has a lot of mining activity going on, whether large scale or small scale, the Minerals Commission is supposed to open an office there. And then there is the district, mining committee that is, composed of some of the departments that are, in terms of regulatory responsibility, in charge of mining. So, for instance, the Environmental Protection Agency, right? The Forestry Commission, if there's a forest, in the area, and so on and so forth. So, and then of course the district, police commander and the security agencies. So, yes, they have, offices in this mining district that are supposed to regulate the small-scale mining or any mining activity that is taking place there. Somehow or another, I think the commission has not been up to the task. And that is why we have, a virtual explosion of illegal mining activity that is taking place, all over the country.
Now, there's an interesting twist to all of the conversation that we actually have put in together on this one, because it looks like the poster child for the illegal mining in this country is this lady, Aisha Huang, and she's sometimes called N1. She is the woman that in 2017 we arrested and we made a lot of noise about. We charged her with some very light charges, which were later on replaced. Immediately after she was the charges were replaced with ones that were serious, which could get her in jail for almost 20 years. She was deported in the name of some dollar postcard, and that it had economic value. At least that's what the senior minister has said. Fast forward to 2022, she comes back into the country. She's able to renew and get a Ghana card, and it's arrested again. You have been in the Attorney General. Take us to the minds of how this is possible.
Well, okay. So when the Attorney General entered the Nole Prosequi at the time of her first arrest,
Yeah.
of course, you do know that the Attorney General is not obliged by law to give reasons why he or she is entering a Nole Prosequi, right?
Okay.
So the then Attorney General, the Honorable Gloria Akufu, did not assign any reasons. And no one can blame her for that because the law gives her, that power not to assign reasons. Her decision to enter the Nole Prosequi was roundly condemned by civil society because they thought that in the circumstances in which we found ourselves, where illegal mining was basically destroying water bodies, polluting our rivers, also destroying forest cover in the country, and so on and so forth, that this was in the public interest. It was in the public interest that a prosecution should take place in order to serve as a deterrent and a warning to all persons who are engaged in like activity, in various parts of the country. Somehow or another, that storm that erupted as a result of an entry of the Nole Prosequi, died away. And we thought that Aisha Huang or Eng Huang, whatever she's called, had been deported to China. And then it is now emerging. And for me as a lawyer, I would not, want to begin to speculate. But it is emerging, that she either illegally entered the country or never actually left the country in the first place. That is an angle that is emerging from the narrative that I'm hearing. And I think that, again, it is, to me, the lack of political will.
But what would be the basis of it? Kapan told us she was deported. We were given the impression that she had been deported. If anybody is of the opinion she still remained in this country, not prosecuted, but let go and freely working, there should be a basis for it, isn't it?
There should be a basis for it. And as we speak, that's why I said, I don't want to speculate. As we speak, that basis is still being established. The investigative report of the police is not yet out. I'm sure when charges are filed and the Attorney General, as he has promised, narrates the facts and then produces the evidence, would know whether or not she actually left the country. Because there should be some paper trail. You cannot be deported without some paperwork being done by the Ghana Immigration Service, in order to take you out of the country. And so that paper trail must be produced in order to show that she was
But you are in Parliament.
deported.
You can call the responsible minister to produce this particular...
Yes, we can. We can. And I think that our, members, ranking members on the Mines and Energy Committee, as well as Defense and Interior, committees, should be making that call, when we return to Parliament.
Is our minerals and mining law, the 2006 and amended in 2019, and also the regulations that actually border the mining industry, is it very weak? Is it incompetent? Is it part of the problem?
It's part of the problem. The regulatory regime is part of the problem. So, for instance, if you look at the Minerals and Mining Act, that's 703, all right, the regime on small-scale mining is very, very clear that you cannot engage in small-scale mining unless you are a Ghanaian citizen, you are 18 years of age, and you have been registered, by the Minerals Commission to engage in small-scale mining, all right? So, in the criteria, okay, for for giving out small-scale, mining licenses,
okay,
right? Foreigners are not entitled to small-scale mining licenses. Now, the regime also contemplates that companies, all right, you and I can form a small-scale mining company to apply for a license. The small-scale, the Minerals and Mining Act actually defines such a company to be one that is exclusively owned by Ghanaians. In other words, the shares of the company and the directors of the company must be exclusively Ghanaian. So the question you ask yourself is, how come now we have foreigners, okay, engage in small-scale mining, either directly or indirectly? I'll give you an example. In the Gbane area that I was talking about earlier, which is an area that is adjacent to my constituency, it's a neighboring district, all right? There was a Chinese company, or there is a Chinese company that for many years, pretended to engage in the mine support service activities.
Okay.
All right, so it was supposed to be renting equipment and so on, but was actually deeply engaged in the mining directly by itself for many years. So they had a number of small-scale miners who had been licensed by, they are Ghanaians of course, licensed by the Minerals Commission to engage in small-scale mining. And then this company was supposed to be providing them with mine support services, but the company was actually directly engaged in actual large-scale deep shaft mining. You know, at the time that I realized that this was happening, they were about 4 kilometers underground.
I see.
Right.
And this was not stopped?
This was not stopped. You know, things went on, and I mean, it's a long story, but ultimately, somewhere around, I think, 2019, 2020, they were granted a large-scale, a mining lease, and now they are, you know, legitimately mining. They are basically just continuing where they started.
Oh, so the company started as an illegal mining body?
It started as a mine support company that was, you know, that was engaged directly in the production of gold.
But is that right?
And it is not right. It certainly wasn't right, and it cannot be right today. But they've been brought into the mainstream.
Regularized.
They have been regularized, yes. Their activities have been regularized.
But by regularizing it, are we not condoning the illegal past that they had?
Yes, we are. And that is where, okay, so the regulatory failure takes two forms, Raymond. It takes the form of the inadequacies of the regulatory regime. So, for instance, if you take the Minerals and Mining Act, all right, it defines small-scale mining.
Okay.
Okay, in terms of the block that is contained in the license that has been granted by the Minerals Commission. However, it does not say how deep you can go.
I see.
It does not say how deep you can go. Right? So once you stay within the surface of, like the area delimited on your license, okay? So let's say it's a kilometer square. It doesn't say whether you can go 100 meters deep or 1,000 feet deep or whatever. And so you can, so what may happen is that you can go underground within the bounds of your but if the mining inspectorate division does not regularly inspect, you can then borrow a hose that will take you outside the range.
That's what people complain about. In fact, those with community mining or who are doing some community mining,
yes,
major mining firms complain that they start from one end and end up in the pits of the major mining firms.
That is it. So they are able to go deep underground, and then they find their way into the mining, shafts, of major mining companies. Because you see,
but is that legal or illegal?
No, it's illegal. You see, they do not engage in prospecting and other activities that determine
exactly where the gold is.
Yeah, the deposits. All right, the commercial, the commerciality of the value of the deposits and so on. So they engage in what I would call, some kind of blind search, okay, for minerals. All right. So of course, the license usually will determine, define the mineral that is, the subject matter of the license. So if it is gold, it is only gold that you can mine for. So they go in looking for the gold, and if it is close to that is in the lease area, all right, of a major mining company, they know that the major mining company would have done a lot of prospecting work. They would have determined, that there are gold deposits in commercial quantities here. Okay. And so they find their way into that area.
It's interesting. Illegally. Can we ever stop that?
Yes, we can stop.
But
we can.
Would it require just changing the legal regime?
Not change. Okay, so that is the first leg of the inadequacies that I'm talking about, the inadequacies of the legal regime. All right. Then the other thing is regulatory enforcement. Okay, so, and that, at various levels, you can have the Mines Inspectorate Division working 24/7 in order to police the activities of the small-scale miners, okay, to ensure that they are compliant. The law requires that they comply with environmental, health, and safety, regulations. Yeah. Okay, so, and it is the work of the Mines Inspectorate Division to be able to police them in that respect. When it comes to the use of chemicals, such as mercury, for processing of gold, the Environmental Protection Agency should be in charge of that, all right? Because it has environmental, implications. So the EPA is also supposed to police and enforce the environmental, and safety regulations, okay? Sometimes, as we can see, either for want of for want of regulatory capacity, or negligence or complicity on their part, they are not doing that, and then we are having the problem that we have on our hands today.
They say that there are big people involved in illegal mining. Is this true?
Well, I have no evidence to that effect. I cannot sit on national television and
don't know
corroborate
any
that. I don't
engage in illegal mining.
I don't.
You don't know any regional chairman of a political party that engages in illegal mining?
No, I don't. I don't have that evidence. Okay. It is in the public domain that a number of politicians are engaged in it. There was a case of the former Minister for Environment, and there was evidence that he and his son were directly engaged. I'm talking about Professor Frimpong Boateng, that there was evidence that he and his son were involved in gold mining. I don't know whether legally or illegally, right? But I would say that, okay, there's no smoke without fire. It is possible that people are being protected by higher-ups, powerful persons. And that is why this is happening. It cannot just be the case, for instance, that, excavators get missing. Excavators, really, these are not toys.
Yeah, they are very big
machines. Very big machines. How do they get missing? And then we are having a banter between the police and a district chief executive as to the whereabouts of excavators.
This is the Lembele situation
that's happening now. And then also you had the situation where excavators were being bent. That's a very, absurd situation, okay, where the law requires that you confiscate the excavators, for the republic, for the state, and then you decide that you are going to ban them.
They justify the president, the attorney general, the minister in charge of lands, who was also a lawyer.
They were banning evidence. They were banning evidence, and Ray, I'm not the only person who holds this view. Okay, my friend and a former colleague at Benzenchi Lecture and Ankoma, is Ankoma himself, holds this view that you are simply banning evidence. Okay, so those are some of the indicators that may prove that there is official complicity in what is happening.
But the president put his presidency on the line.
Well, I can say without any equivocation that, he has failed. He put his presidency on the line. If we were in the situation where you could recall presidents, this would have been a basis to recall him, because he has failed. And I'm sure he will be the first person to admit that he has failed as far as the fight on illegal mining.
But officials on the ground. You have just mentioned the Inspectorate Division.
Yes.
They are district chief executives.
Yes.
They are police officers, commanders. Yes. They are ministers who
Raymond,
have direct responsibility.
How many of those has he sacked? How many of those has he fired because they are not doing their work? I do not expect His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to go to mining areas to ensure that small-scale mining is done legally and in an environmentally safe, manner and so on. I do not expect him to do that. So when the president said he was putting his presidency on the line on this matter, I thought that he was going to put his foot down and ensure that his appointees from ministers, deputy ministers, heads of agencies and departments in charge of mining, such as the EPA, the Minerals Commission, the Forestry Commission, and so on, that these people did their work so that Ghana will not be the loser. Unfortunately, they haven't done so. And he has not fired anyone. If you have evidence that the president has fired somebody on account of the failure of the fight against illegal mining, you can let me know.
No, nobody. Should he be doing that?
Yes, he should be. If I were him, I would be firing agency heads. Heads will be rolling. And even ministers. Why not? If you are a sector minister and something as grotesque as this, something as welfare reducing as this is happening under your care, you should be fired. If I'm a minister, I'll be tendering my resignation if I cannot handle the situation. But everybody seems to be
they
like...
They have watercrafts on the water bodies. They say they have drones in the skies.
You know, those
they have people who are supposed, military men, who are fighting this every day. What else can a minister do differently?
Ray, you in the media are also part of the problem. So they have drones.
Yeah, we also have drones. We are checking it.
And yes, but they have drones that are, supposed to be monitoring. All right? Have you been able to cross-check to find out whether those drones are being used?
Not
yes, as a fourth estate of the realm, you should be finding out that for us.
But at least we have enough drones on our own to check that illegal mining is happening.
Well, okay, that is not your remit. Yeah. Right? Your remit is to report if the state is failing in its duty to protect Ghanaians from illegal mining.
That's what we've been saying to the people.
So that's no, but you are not doing enough.
Oh, really?
Yes, you are not doing enough. If you are doing enough, you see, if you are there...
We have been telling you people in this republic that this is the incident on the ground. In fact, Erastus has been virtually every single mining pit in this country, and bringing you enough of the evidence.
I must commend Erastus for that.
Yes.
Is it Erasmus, right?
Yes, but isolating him from the media. He is part of us.
I really admire him for his courage, and the risk that he has assumed. But he's just a lone voice in the system on this issue.
No, but he works with the team here.
Ray, the way you people roundly condemned us when we were in office, you are treating this regime with kid gloves. As far as many issues are concerned,
so, that's not a topic.
Well, yeah, but let me say it.
You are going on the rough road about treatment comparison.
No,
because it's not debit and credit. It's really about what is happening now.
Yes.
And the destruction of our forest, of our water bodies, is very serious.
Yes.
But the comparison will not solve the problem.
No, the comparison won't solve the problem.
Yes.
But it will highlight the deficiencies of the fourth estate of the realm.
Okay, now, can we now...
And your biases. Your biases.
Oh, we are biased too.
Oh, you're very biased. Extremely biased.
Oh, I think you have been unfair too.
No, I've been monitoring you people. The way you condemned us when it came to matters of corruption.
Illegal mining.
Something as little as, 4 million...
4 million is small.
No, let me tell you. In comparison to what is happening today, something as little as 4.3 million, and of which my boss, the former Attorney General, recovered, she recovered 1.5 million and put it into the public coffers. Nobody praised us for that. All right?
What are you exactly talking about?
Basically, the bus branding.
The bus brand,
yes. And you went on a daily basis.
Yeah, but that was money for railway development.
For what?
That was money for railway development. Oil money for railway development.
Yes.
And it was diverted into doing bus brand and called a Soul Stores event. How on earth is that possible?
Yes.
The point merely because there was corruption yesterday doesn't justify corruption today.
It doesn't justify corruption today.
Yes.
I'm giving you that as an example of a situation where the media bashing was thoroughly unjustified.
Oh, we are bashing this government today.
No, you are not. You are not.
But what are we talking about today?
You are not.
Right from the morning up to this time. You have not heard all of them.
Anyway, can we...
Yes, but of course.
Yes.
I understand you. Now, the other point I want to raise with you is the Aisha Huang specific situation.
Yes.
The Attorney General says, and I want the docket. I want to prosecute from the previous 2017 issues. After filing a nolle prosequi, can you go back and prosecute the
Yes, why not? You can always... No, but the nolle prosequi is a common law remedy, or let me say a common law power that is vested in the Attorney General. In our case, it has been, provided for under statute that you can, the Attorney General may enter a nolle prosequi. And usually when you enter a nolle prosequi, it gives you an opportunity to take a second look at the case, right? You can, maybe there were investigative flaws that you want to remedy and prepare yourself well for an investigation and so on. And the principle of law is that time does not run against a crime. So the Attorney General is right that, he can actually, reinstitute the charges and then add fresh charges, emanating from the latest developments that have taken place. So, for me, if I were in his shoes, I don't want to second guess his work. And if I were in his shoes, right, I would have ordered a DPP, to straight away file the old charges, reinstate the old charges, all right, and start a prosecution. You can always amend your charge sheet, based upon fresh evidence, of a crime that has taken place, or by the same person. So there's no need waiting for the second docket, investigative docket to come before you do that. He can actually start the prosecution based upon the charges that were preferred as a result of the actions of Occupy Ghana.
Okay,
yes.
That's interesting because they are the ones who asked for tougher charges.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he can actually do that right away. I don't think he needs to wait.
Can China intervene?
Can
higher economic value determine an intervention which will lead to her deportation again?
China can always intervene. As a country, a sovereign country, you have the right to protect your citizens, especially in situations where you think that they are in grave danger, of certain forms of actions by a foreign government. But in this case, we can also assert our sovereign right, to prosecute persons who have committed offenses within the territories of Ghana, the territorial boundaries of Ghana. So we can do that. But of course, if China is intervening and they have a lot of leverage, don't be surprised if the president and his men and women cave in again. Don't be.
Even with the promise that there will be full prosecution for her alleged new and past offenses.
Oh, yes. If China brings its economic might to bear on this, I won't be surprised if Aisha Huang is deported for the second time.
At least the senior minister told us previously that it was of economic value that we took that decision.
Well, he never defined what economic value was involved.
He mentioned what was supposed to be a Sino-Hydro deal and other things that were on the table.
Okay, I'm not aware of that. I don't remember. I don't remember.
Point is that we are still doing Sino-Hydro today.
Yes.
We are still waiting for a lot of the money which is not coming. Yes. A lot of the projects which we have also not done yet.
Well, but you see, Raymond,
anybody this woman and deal with her and hold her responsible for the destruction and the harm she has caused this republic, mindful of what has happened previously?
Okay, so the Constitution says that governmental powers must be exercised in the name of and for the welfare of the people. The question is whether or not in doing this balancing act, right? Because you have to weigh what China is providing us by way of loans and grants and so on for these projects against the harm that is being caused by the activities of persons like, Aisha Huang, all right? And then, make a determination, okay, that on balance, we are gaining. If we are not gaining, if what is happening is, welfare reducing, all right, it behoves on the government, to take drastic action to stop what is happening. We cannot say that because of, Sino-Hydro, our forests, should be depleted. Gold deposits belonging to the people of this country should be, exhausted, extracted and taken out, illegally. Because, mind you, all these activities, when gold is, or minerals are won, all right, they are taken out through very illicit channels because they are not done, they are not, won on on a legitimate basis. Okay, so we are losing in millions, all right, of dollars, and so we need to do a balancing act, and on the basis of that, we will make a determination as to whether or not we are actually gaining economically from these activities. Now,
there's a question, though, about the very arrangement with Aisha Huang as we speak. That question is to whether or not, as we have these conversations about the lady and the things she's capable of, some are even extending it to possible economic espionage. Professor Enin believes that Aisha Huang could be an agent of the Chinese state. Right. Sent to undermine our waters and river bodies, which will affect our cocoa production, something that China is currently trying to do. Is it reasonable? Is it possible?
Well, that is a plausible argument, and he's a security expert, so he can make that argument based upon intelligence and upon the evidence on the ground and so on. So he can make those suppositions. I am not in a position, to provide an opinion because I'm not an expert in that area.
Yeah, I was asking this because some say it should influence the kind of charges we level against her.
Well, if there's evidence of economic espionage, why not? Okay, but if this is just a question of speculation, or an opinion that is based upon speculative, evidence, I don't think that will stand, scrutiny in a court of competent jurisdiction. We should not be going in that direction. There are concrete facts on the ground of offenses that have been committed, immigration-related offenses, mining-related offenses. As in the first charges that were brought against her. We should deal with those. Because they are low-hanging fruits. We shouldn't go for any speculative charges that will fail in court.
Now, there's one related question about what's happening with excavators and all of that. You know what's happening in that part, in the Western region today, in the Mbele, where the DC is boldly saying that the police, they actually kept the excavators. They only went to retrieve it. When we sought to go and accost them and make sure that there is evidence that they really went to retrieve their own, they arrested us. The police also said that the DC is rather hiding the excavators. And when the police went to retrieve the excavators, they obstructed justice. How do we deal with a situation like that? Let's not forget that the DC is actually the head of DISEC.
Right. Okay, so you see, when at the local level, you have conflicting, narratives with respect to the occurrence of a crime, all right? So, and you have the head of the DISEC, telling us one story, and then the police command also telling us another story. What you do is that you send national officers to go into the local area, put them aside, put the police, the local police aside, then the DC aside, and conduct a thorough investigation and report, to the president or the attorney general for action. Because I listened to the MC or DC when I was coming, and his story is, radically different from that which is being put out by the police.
Yeah.
So I was a bit, confused as to who is telling the truth. We cannot rely on those two in order to arrive at the truth. So we need to send in national officers.
These national officers, are they police officers or from, let's say?
Or we can send in national security, we can send in, national investigation bureau officers and so on. That's what happens in many jurisdictions. In the US, you send in the feds when you know that the local people are not doing a great job on a matter like that.
Well, what does it say about the fight against illegal mining?
It tells us that we have a long way to go. It tells us that the level of, there's evidence emerging of official complicity, all right? It's just that, I'm always very cautious to make any allegations of official complicity without evidence, all right? But you can see that all the circumstantial evidence on this issue of illegal mining points to official complicity in the matter. But you need, an investigation that is impartial, and that is looking objectively at, on the facts on the ground to be able to come to that definitive conclusion of official complicity.
And that probe, who can do that? Parliament?
Yes, Parliament can do that. Parliament can do that. But Ray, I can tell you one thing. There is something that is emerging as far as Parliament is concerned, that we are no longer interested in bipartisan, committees of inquiry. Flowing from what happened in 2017 in the cast for sheets, I think the ruling party has learned its lessons the hard way. And anytime we bring a motion for a bipartisan committee, they shoot it down. They are not interested any longer. So I cannot guarantee that as far as the minerals and mining sector is concerned and the issue of illegal mining is concerned, a bipartisan committee can be set up to objectively go into the facts, probe into the issues, and come out with a report that will help this country move forward. There is something that my senior Akoto Ampao, said in a video that has gone viral, that it looks like the two parties are not enhancing the democratic dividends of the constitutional democracy that we started 30 years ago. I want to agree with him.
Really?
Yes.
Including your side?
Yes.
Why?
Well, you see, we take deep-seated partisan positions on every issue.
Okay.
That is not, good for our democracy. It's not good for the development of the country as a whole. That, I think, is what is pulling us back. All right? When we did Cast for Seats, we held ministers, accountable. Yeah. Even though at the end of the day, we had a divided, House with respect to the content of the final report and so on. at least we had the minister come to Parliament to explain himself, to explain away his actions. All right, that is what legislatures all over the country, all over the world do. I mean those legislatures that are functioning, that are not very dysfunctional. Take the January 6th, committee in the U.S. All right, both Democrats and Republicans are sitting together on the same table and looking at the threat that was posed to the American democracy by the actions of the supporters of the Make America Great Again, this coalition.
Okay.
All right. The Republicans on the committee are not, shying away from asking critical questions because it will damage their party. So I think that we need, as a country, to rethink the way we deal with matters, all right, of public interest, okay? Whether it is NDC that is in power or it is MPP that is in power, we need to look at the national interest first.
I'll take a break. After this break, we'll continue the conversation with Dr. Aine on our front. You're welcome back. This is Upfront. Tonight, we've been dealing with a potpourri of issues. The first one, which we apparently still has to deal with Dr. Aine is a former Deputy Attorney General. Currently in Parliament, you chair the Subsidiary Legislation Committee.
That is right.
So he has, okay, of course, you have to be a member of Parliament to chair that committee. So I was about saying he's a member of Parliament. So we are tapping into some understanding of what's happening currently on the legal front. And he's actually been pointing out the defects in the law and how that's aiding illegal mining across the country. And also the regulatory layers he thinks is partly responsible for the current problems we have on our hands, be it Aisha Huang or what's happening in the Western region, to do with the DCE fighting the police over who's actually been keeping the very, very important excavators. Let's not forget, this is the Republic of Ghana that's still looking for over 500 or so excavators.
Excavators, yeah.
In this small space of Ghana, we can't find 500 excavators. That's one interesting part. Now, you're welcome back. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When we left off, we're having a conversation about how partisanship is affecting Parliament and all of that. But I just want to quickly chip in this about dealing with this illegal mining thing. Do you think at the rate that we are going, we can get to the bottom of this matter? In fact, the ministry promised that by next year, by March, all water bodies would have been cleared, returned to their normal state. Do you think all of those projections reasonably will be met?
I don't think so. Because if we're to be able to meet that deadline, then we would have seen a lot of activity that is going on, with respect to the cleaning up of the water bodies and so on. I haven't seen evidence of that happening. But by the way, this is not the first time that a minister has promised. I think the previous minister promised that they were going to clean up the water bodies. And at some point in time, pictures emerged on social media, of River Pra and I think one of the big rivers in the Western region, all right, with very clean blue looking water, only for other pictures to emerge that showed that that picture was not it was not a research. It was not. Yeah. So I don't believe that we will be able to meet that deadline and in cleaning up our water bodies. Mind you, that is a very taxing scientific process. The process of cleaning up the water bodies. All right. First of all, we need to engage in dredging. Okay. We need to be able to take out in a scientific manner, all right, all the pollutants, especially the chemical, pollutants in the water and so on and so forth. This is not something that is done, can be done in a day or two. So I don't believe that we can attain that, objective within the deadline stipulated by the minister. Because we have only how many months now to the end of the year?
Yeah, a couple of months.
A couple of months,
the last
yes.
quarter of the year.
Yes, we don't take, 3 months to clean up a river.
That's interesting. Now, There's a question, though, about the conduct of the NIA too. Many were worried that regardless of what's happened, a deported woman came back to this country and was able to get or renew or get an old, what they call a Ghana card.
Right.
What does it say about our national identification system?
Well, it means that there are, deficiencies in the implementation. And that is sometimes when I think of these things, I get sad because the NIA should have trained their officers, okay, to be able to detect certain, falsehood or false statements or false evidence that is being presented for purposes of registration. Now, the biometrics were what betrayed Aisha Huang, all right? And therefore, once the red flag came, then the relevant officer ought to have reported it, to their supervisors, okay, who would have escalated it to, the decision makers who would take a decision with respect to whether or not this registration ought to proceed, all right? Interestingly, there have been a number of times that people have walked into my office and sought legal assistance, all right? And these are usually our neighboring Nigerians who have gone to attempt to register and then have been caught, right? Attempting to register, and we've had to deal with some of those situations. So if you have a situation where it looks like, fellow West Africans who are seeking to obtain the Ghana card are promptly arrested, I don't see how the Chinese woman, got off the hook, even when the biometrics showed that she was, seeking to, circumvent the system.
Now, moving beyond this particular point of illegal mining, of what's happening with Aisha Huang, and of the very things that Galamsey is doing in this country, there's also another topical matter that I would like to pick your brain on: conflict of interest,
right,
or the perception of same. For example, you in Parliament holding the Minister for Finance to come and explain the relationship between his interested company, that is Data Bank, and his Minister of State's own relationship with that institution. From where you sit, can the Finance Minister have as transaction advisors both Data Bank and Black Star Line that are related to himself and his Minister of State?
Right. So let's go back to the basics. All right. So there is a constitutional framework on the conduct, of public officers.
Okay.
There's a whole chapter, I think chapter 24 of the Constitution, that is devoted to it. And the first provision of that chapter is to the effect that a public officer shall not put himself in a position where his personal interest conflicts with the performance of the functions of his office.
Fundamental.
Okay. That is fundamental, all right? So you shall not put yourself in that. It's mandatory, okay? So we should not even be debating the question whether or not Data Bank or any company affiliated or associated with the finance minister can transact business with the finance ministry. Now, my understanding is that, Data Bank was already doing business with the finance ministry prior to the appointment of the Honorable Ken of Oriata, right? When he walked into that office, he knew, or ought reasonably to have known, that he was walking into a terrain of conflict of interest, all right? And the conflict is that there are two primary interests here. Okay, there is the public interest in, efficient and effective resource allocation. That is public resource allocation, because Data Bank is engaged in transactions that, elicit payments from the Republic. Okay, so that is the public interest. Now, and then there is a secondary interest that he has, which is his personal interest in the profits of Data Bank. So clearly, there is a conflict of interest situation, arising out of his appointment. Okay, so then he walks into that office, and then Data Bank continues to provide those services and continues, to receive payment, for those services. Now, that I think is unethical. All right, even if it is not illegal, it is unethical, and I'll say why I'm saying so. Legally, Ken Ofori-Atta can claim that he does not take part in decision making. Now remember that the provision says that you shall not put yourself in that situation of conflict of interest. But generally the rules on conflict of interest require that where the public officer's personal interest is likely to, conflict with, or is conflicting with the public interest or the performance of the responsibilities of his office, okay, he has to recuse himself and not be or take part in decision making relating to, the contract or transaction that is, subject to, his authority.
Okay.
All right. In those circumstances, the question is whether, as a matter of fact, within the finance ministry, who is the ultimate decision maker when it comes to who becomes a transaction advisor to the government of Ghana when we go borrowing or seeking, foreign loans and so on. Under the Public Finance Management Act, it is the finance minister. All right. Now, we don't have any evidence of actual decisions that have been taken. And I think that if if a complaint were made to Sraj should have, requested, okay, or ordered the finance minister to produce the minutes of all decisions taken on the loan transactions and that relate to transaction advisory services being provided by the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, provided by Data Bank, and then made a determination as to whether when those, at what level those decisions are taking place, and the extent to which the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta influences the outcome of those decisions. But left to me, Ray, he should have, stopped Data Bank from participating in the provision of transaction advisory services to the Ministry of Finance, because there is no way that anybody will think that given the statutory powers that he has under the Public Finance Management Act, all right, he is not the one who calls the shots, ultimately, when it comes to whether Data Bank should be a transaction advisor and how much Data Bank, should be paid or ought to be paid in respect of those transactions. It is
happening today. If he wants to extricate himself from any possible conflict of interest or ongoing conflict of interest, what should he do?
Resign.
Resign?
Yes. So he has two options. One is resign from being finance minister so that Data Bank can deal at arm's length with whoever is the next finance minister, or stop Data Bank from providing transaction advisory services directly or indirectly to the Ministry of Finance. Because I keep saying that I don't have the evidence, to show that on a day-by-day basis, when these matters come up, he's at the table or he's absent from the table. All right, because the rules of conflict of interest will usually require that you recuse yourself from the decision making, all right, either directly or indirectly, and then make sure that those who are taking the decision are not influenced in one way or the other by your exercise of public authority over those people. So let's say that he does not take part. It is the chief director and the director of budget or whatever, they are the ones who sit down and make that decision. Okay, do they make that decision and look over their shoulders, to find out whether or not their minister will tomorrow be unhappy with them and maybe cause them to be fired and so on and so forth? The situation is murky. So it's difficult for him, to excuse himself from accusations of conflict of interest. And that is why I'm saying that it is unethical, for him to place himself in that kind of situation, and to say that, oh, it's okay, we were providing services to the Republic, Data Bank has a track record, and we will continue to provide that, that service. In other places, and when I was coming, because you told me we'll be looking at this, I printed, two examples. We have the Executive Members, Ethics Act of South Africa, 1998, of South Africa, that provides, if there were time, I would have taken you through the Code of Ethics, and then also the Alaska Executive Branch Ethics Act,
Okay.
of the state of Alaska in the United States of America. And Section 3952, if you may permit me, says that the legislature affirms that each public officer holds office as a public trust, and any effort to benefit a personal or financial interest through official action is a violation of that trust.
Okay.
All right. So, being finance minister, you are exercising power on the basis of a public trust. And therefore, if for some reason, directly or indirectly, you are benefiting personally, all right, from transactions that, take place between your company and the Republic, then that is unethical.
That's interesting. It's a very summed up situation. I was particularly interested in the part you said resign or what they call it, take out
Data bank.
Data bank. Now, finally, before we go, there's a question about the conduct of the current Auditor General when it comes to audit reports. Occupy Ghana is worried. In fact, they think he should be removed or prosecuted for committing high crimes by not issuing disallowances and surcharges like his predecessor. You agree with them?
It's a very interesting proposition. You see, the Constitution in Article 187, I think 1875, gave the Auditor General a discretionary power to issue the surcharge and disallowance. Occupied Ghana went to court and then pressed upon the Supreme Court a viewpoint, which was that the discretion should be taken away, it should be made mandatory. And that, in interpretation, the purpose of the provision, ought to be that it is mandatory that the Auditor General undertakes the surcharge or the disallowance, okay? Because the constitutional purpose will be defeated if the discretion remains, all right? So the Supreme Court in Occupy Ghana and Attorney General agreed, with Occupy Ghana. So when you are reading 1875, you have to read it in mandatory terms, okay? So he has this mandatory constitutional obligation to take action, and he has failed to take the action. Now, that is a breach of the Constitution, and that is why under the Constitution, it is said that when you breach the Constitution, that is a high crime, all right? And for that matter, you can be, tried for, a high crime, under the Constitution. I think that is what, they are calling for. But I think that they need to look at the circumstances and the administrative burden of the Auditor General to be able to, come to a conclusion that he is being derelict in the performance of his constitutional duty.
You don't think he's been?
Well, again, I don't have the evidence to say whether he is, because when I was Deputy Attorney General, all right, I worked with the Auditor General, on surcharge and disallowances. It's not, a very easy process. Okay, so it's not the case that you see, people tend to think that immediately there is a disallowance, it must be followed by a surcharge. All right. The disallowed amount may come as a result of certain circumstances, and the public officer whose actions resulted in the disallowed amount, okay, can explain that, to the Auditor General, and the Auditor General may accept the explanation.
Is that what's happening?
I don't know. I cannot speculate.
Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us on today's edition of Upfront. Many thanks to you also for watching. It's been a wonderful time with you. Let's do the same tomorrow at 6 p.m.